All right, thank you for listening to Remake Rewind, the podcast where we decide if remakes and reboots should have happened. I am Mike, as always. With me, as always, is Double D. What's up, Double D?
What up, Mike?
And we're missing somebody today. Who are we missing, Double D?
Oh, man, we're missing Dustin.
Yes, we are missing Dustin. This is the first episode that Dustin's missing, but I think it's for a legitimate reason. What would you say, Double D? Would you say it's legit?
I guess. Yeah, I can't blame him.
Yeah.
He's having a baby soon.
Yep. So, Dustin, he's adding another member to his family. Him and his wife are having a baby girl pretty soon in the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
So he's just getting ready for that, big change in his life. But he will be back. He'll probably be gone for a couple months. In March will be our anniversary, our first year. So he'll be back for an episode in March, and then he'll be gone again. But he'll be back eventually. So, we're really happy.
So for now, you got to deal with us.
Yeah. So you got to deal with me and Double D. You're not getting rid of me. You're not getting rid of Double D.
I don't think we could get rid of you if we tried, Mike.
No, you can't. You guys don't even have access to the website.
Oh, damn it.
You ding-dongs. So
we kind of need you.
Yep. So what are we doing this week, Double D?
Ghost in the Shell.
Ghost in the Shell. Are you a fan of the series? Have you seen these before?
I had actually just watched the anime probably a few months ago, so I hadn't been a fan of it originally, but it was a good movie when I did watch it.
I'm not a big anime person. Like, I've tried. Dustin has tried to get me to watch like Robotech, Berserk, a bunch of different things, and I'm just not a big anime guy. Even like the Miyazaki films, I'm not really into.
What?
I just like the anime style. I'm not into, and like it's all so weird. Like,
but you read comics, don't you?
I don't anymore, just because I don't have the time or the money. But I used to be really into comics.
But comics get expensive.
But the problem with anime, and this is just the animation style is choppy, and it's all about you filling in the gaps and stuff like that. I don't know. It's just like sometimes the art is like oversimplified, and sometimes it's like really weird, and the stories are all super weird. And I think that might just be my first introduction to anime. It was really like Spirited Away, and that movie is fucking weird.
Yeah, it
like
is
that weird
weird.
baby. I don't know. That's the black costume dude, but like there's that weird baby that can talk, and then the black costume ghost dude.
You gotta watch like a beginner anime like Naruto or something.
Yeah, that's fine. I've tried watching Robotech. Dustin keeps trying to get me to watch that. And
Robotech's not a beginner anime for sure.
No, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just not into it. But yeah, overall, like we'll get into this one. I've never seen Ghost in the Shell until a few days ago, and I didn't see the ScarJo one in theaters. Like,
yeah, this is actually my first time watching the newer version of it as well with ScarJo. I actually purchased the movie and I've had it since it came out on DVD, but I haven't gotten a chance to watch it till now.
I just rented it on Amazon for $1.
Oh, well, I own it.
Well, rich brag.
Yep. Humble brag.
All right, so let's just get into it. You got a synopsis?
Yeah. So for the 1995 Ghost in the Shell. The year is 2029. The world has become intensively information-oriented, and humans are well connected to the network. Crime has developed into a sophisticated stage by hacking into the interactive network. To prevent this, Section 9 is formed. These are cyborgs with incredible strengths and abilities that can access any network on Earth. Thank you, L.H. Wong, for that synopsis.
That didn't tell you anything about the story at all.
I know, this was weird. But, yeah, no, it didn't say anything about the story. So it's It's 1995 anime. It's a movie about cyborgs. Everybody's cybernetically enhanced in some way. But our main character, Major, is a full cyborg but has a human brain in her.
Or a ghost.
Yes, a ghost, a consciousness, a soul.
And the bodies are called shells. I think I just figured out the title.
The shell, mind blown.
So right off the bat, like this movie is on a lot of people's list of best movies ever made. And the Wachowskis have talked about how it influenced The Matrix, and it definitely has a spot in pop culture.
For sure.
And even though it's something that I've never seen, I would recognize the Major anytime. Like I've seen her around. I've seen her in comic, not her person, but like
there's other Ghost in the Shell movies,
like posters and comic books and stuff like that of her, or the mangas. Also, I think the guy with the weird eyes, is it Batu?
Batu, yeah.
Batu. I've seen him around too. Like I know where he's from, so it's not like this is completely lost. So I definitely get that this is a big thing, and I know a lot of people had an issue with some of the casting in the new one, which I guess we'll just talk about when we get into the new one. So like there are people who are really, really into this movie.
I mean, I have issues with casting in the anime. I'm just kidding.
In the anime?
Yeah. No,
all right.
But yeah, that's definitely an issue we'll talk about when we get to it.
Yeah, there's definitely some things that are interesting in this movie, and the problem with the anime, like I said, there's weird choppiness to it. It's not a smooth one, but this by far is one of the better ones that I've seen.
Yeah.
And there's some really cool things. Like I like those weird suitcase guns at the beginning of the movie when she.
That was really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. So at the beginning of this movie, basically opens up with this guy is trying to defect to America, and there's a diplomat from America who has diplomatic immunity, and he's trying to like facilitate this defection, and they basically send Major in to prevent it from happening, and she just straight murks this American,
just shoots him in the head.
Right. And so like Section 6, which is like another paramilitary group, which they don't really. The problem I had with this movie is I actually texted you while in the middle of watching it saying I didn't understand it, and you're just like, buckle in, it'll make sense at the end.
It'll clear up as it goes
right
along.
So
I got a kick out of that text.
So they like this other group are going to arrest him, and then the guy's like, I have diplomatic immunity, you can't do anything, and then just a bullet comes through
the window,
and it doesn't just like hit him in the head, like his head explodes. Like it flies off first, so you see his like head rip back, and his neck rips off with it, and then the head explodes, and you see like the spine and all this crap. And I'm like, what the hell? And so
they talk about the bullets later on. Like there's high velocity bullets that are like this guy had an Uzi later on that destroyed an armored vehicle. Like
right,
what the hell?
So right off the bat, initially I was like, oh shit, I'm on board with this, because I was like, this is pretty gnarly. And then I was quickly lost and off board.
Wait, what? What is going on?
And it was weird. Like, and then the next scene, it showed like them building her, I guess.
Yeah.
And there was like the credits were that, and it shows like it looks like she has like regular human muscle and bone, but then she's also got like robotic stuff around it. It was a really cool looking scene.
That's what a cyborg is, Mike.
Right. But the way they described it made it seem like she had a mostly robotic body, and they just put the mind in. But it seems like it was still a mostly organic body, but maybe it's stronger organic stuff.
I think it's like a skeleton of robot and then organic tissue around it. It was kind of weird. Oh, I guess we'll talk about it when we talk about the newer movie, but it was just like a liquid in the newer movie.
Yeah, it was weird. And then... Yeah. So she goes and does this and takes out the guy, and then it does like this opening credits of her getting built, and then it goes to like she's talking to a guy named Tagusa, right? Is that the guy's name? And she's talking about how, and this is where this movie is drastically different than the original, or not the original, the remake. So she's talking to this guy, and she's like explaining that the reason Tagusa's on the team is because he's mostly human and only has memory augmentations.
And he uses a revolver.
But she likes it because she says that people who are all cybernetic are more predictable, but people without are less predictable, and they have a different way of looking at things, and that's why he's on the team.
Yeah. Well, she also kind of like, it's kind of condescending when she says it to him. She's like, oh, because you're imperfect, basically, because you don't process as efficiently as we do, and we need that different perspective.
Right. But the thing is, I'm like, you would think that would come into play later, and it doesn't.
It does not at all.
It doesn't. And so, while watching this movie, the one thing I can't say about this movie is if you're willing to pause it, you can. There. Every time something ends, every time there's an action break or a scene change, it is a stark transition. Like it doesn't. Nothing blends into each other. It just one scene ends. And then the next thing happens, and so it's definitely like really easy to pause and go on Wikipedia and read what the hell just happened. Because I had no idea what was happening in any scene. Which
it was a little jump around.
Did you subs or dubs, bro?
So the first time I watched it, I watched with subs, and this time, just watching it again, I watched it dubbed.
So I watched it with subs. I have Stars, and they actually have it. It's like Stars, their app has like a manga section, and this movie was in it, so I was really lucky.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, it was sub. So, I mean, maybe we can diverge on that for a little bit. How do you feel? Like you watch more animes than I do. Like, are you primarily a subs or dubs guy?
No, subs for sure. On like all the anime like series and kind of stuff, I watch it subbed. But for movies, I think it's different. I think the transition from the script to English is just not done well. So like watching this one specifically, I remember watching it subbed and it was good, but I watched it dubbed this time and like there were funny lines that were funnier because they actually did it correctly in English.
I did it subs because I didn't have a choice, but typically, like, if I'm going to watch a movie and I have the option, subs forces me to pay attention to the movie.
Yeah, definitely.
So I do kind of appreciate that. Like, if it was dubs, I probably would have been, like, multitasking and doing stuff.
Playing phone games.
Right. So getting back into the movie, like, there's some interesting themes and weird stuff about it. So, like, the next scene has, like, this guy who's a garbage man, and he's, like, telling his garbage man buddy that he met some hacker who was teaching him how to hack into his wife's stuff because she wouldn't let him see his child.
See his kid. Yeah.
Right. And what's weird is, so like while this scene's going on and then it kind of cuts back to Gusa and Major, and she's like talking about how they're going to go after the puppet master. And there's no explanation as to who the puppet master is or anything like that initially. So they're just like, oh, we're going after this guy. And somehow they
suspect he's American.
Right. And somehow they figure out that he's linked to these garbage men.
It's because of the hacking.
Right. So that's
they're
right.
Tracing the hack.
Yeah, so they're tracing the hack, and it leads to these garbage men. And so they go to these garbage men, they're like following them around, but then there's like a guy at a payphone who just starts shooting at them.
So I guess this guy was
break it down for me because I didn't understand it.
So each of these people that they're chasing has been hacked by the Project 2501. So they're all
the puppet master.
Implanted. Exactly, the puppet master. They're all implanted memories in these guys. So they're all basically just working for him without knowing it, thinking they're doing their thing.
Right.
So this guy's leaving these cards to do the barrier hacks so that the garbage man comes by and makes the call and that they're not getting caught like intertwined.
Got it.
But I guess the barrier hacks are what the puppet master needs to get into the different sections, like Section 6 and Section 9.
So basically what ends up happening is they trace this hack, and then they go to stop the garbage man, but then this guy with an Uzi starts like shooting at them, and Major is like super condescending to the Tagusa guy and Batu. She's like, he's got high velocity rounds, and they're like, in an Uzi? That's super dangerous. You shouldn't do that.
That's reckless.
Right. So then like they're going around shooting, and then they do this like rooftop chase, and then she ends like getting this guy in this like flooded area in the town, and she's invisible, and she like breaks his arm, and it's you see the arm
gnarly
twist like around all
and
the
ankle
way
too.
And the ankle, yep. And you know, it's a really cool little scene. And what I mean, when we get into the new one, I want to talk about it a little more, but like so much of this is redone in the newer one that it was really interesting because I watched one on, what's today? Today's Sunday. So I watched one on Friday and one on Saturday, and just watching them more or less back to back, it was pretty interesting seeing how they related, but we'll get into more detail in a little bit.
Yeah, no, I agree. That was pretty cool to see.
But like this,
some shot for shot scenes, you know.
And so this guy had an invisibility cloak too. So like I don't know why. So she's like chasing him, and she's got like vision where she can kind of see him, but like he disappears and then appears, and so she ends up fighting him, and that was like a pretty cool fight scene. And then it goes to like the office, and the guy, like the boss guy, is like interviewing him, and he like shows him a photo, and it's just a picture of him, and the guy is like convinced that it's a picture of his kids.
Well, that was the garbage man guy.
Yeah, no, so I'm saying the boss is interviewing the garbage man guy.
Oh, yeah.
And then you find out that they got hacked, and you're like, okay, that's a pretty interesting thing. And then it just jumps to Major like floating in the ocean. And
well, just to go back to the garbage man scene. This was actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie the first time watching it around, because that really like got to me. Like, if someone can fucking implant memories and just fucking ruin your life just by just hacking you, that's crazy to me.
And the thing that I was confused about, and this is something that I was going to kind of save until we've talked about both and just do kind of like the overarching themes, but it seems like most of these people are somewhat augmented, but it seems like to be augmented, it would cost a lot of money, and that's why there's like a variety of where people are augmented. Like a garbage man, I can't imagine can afford the best augmentation where his body and mind are completely replaced. Like I feel like he might have something for vision or maybe slight strength for lifting garbage cans or something. Like how do they completely hack the brain if the brain is mostly intact. Like I feel like somebody who's poor wouldn't be able to get his entire brain replaced.
No, I don't think so. But what I think, I mean, it's all just speculation at this point because it's an anime and a comic, right? But so I mean, all your augmentations are going to have to go into your brain somehow, like,
right?
To connect to be able to control it. So,
right.
I mean, all memory is just random firing of synapses trying to remember things. So if you're able to control the synapses, I mean, if you're able to control the electronics in your brain with the synapses, I mean, that's all you need. You just need some entry to the brain.
I guess. I mean, you can suspend your disbelief. I was fine with it. Like, I didn't dwell on it for too much, but I'm just like, that's super dangerous.
Oh yeah, but that part really got to me. It's like, oh my god, this is a serious dude,
right?
Puppet master.
So it starts. So she's like floating in the ocean, and then this is a scene that kind of like I thought was where the movie was going to kick into gear, because before watching the movie, I did a little research on it. I went to Wikipedia, I looked at a couple of things, and everyone's like, this movie is so thought provoking. Like, it really dives deep into what does it mean to be a human, and what does it mean to be alive, and all this stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So she kind of like, she's in the ocean, and then she comes up, and Batu is like, why do you do it? And she's like, I don't know, I like it. It's, no communications. It's weird, and it makes me feel like I'm normal and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then just like offhand, she's like, sometimes I'm not even sure if we're real. Like, maybe we're not actually human, and maybe like we've been manufactured completely. And I'm like, okay, this is where it goes. We're going to kick into a plot where she finds out that maybe she's not actually human, or what she thinks is her destiny isn't the case. And then they kind of just laugh about it, and it's over. I'm like, wait, what? Like,
well, there's another scene that is a callback to that later, where they're in the elevator and she's saying it, and then Batu is just, it's a long pause, and then Batu is just, that's bullshit.
Right. Like they just completely shut it down. And it's interesting. I'm thinking like she's going to have this like existential crisis based off of this, and it's not. So basically, like, we don't need to talk about the entire movie beat for beat, but basically what ends up happening is, just through happenstance, they find another robotic body. Like, the garbage man is a dead end. Like, they can't figure out where he is from this. So they just randomly find like a robot body, and it turns out that the puppet master is an AI, or was an AI created by Section 6. And so it goes deeper, and you find out that Section 6 was actually created to hunt Puppet Master, but they were doing stuff before Puppet Master was around. So you find out that Puppet Master was an AI that they created, and then
that they said was a bug, was an error in creation.
Right. And it turns out he became self-aware, he became sentient, and they were just trying to keep him around. So all these things of him hacking were him trying, like you said, to get barriers, to get from one area to the other, to eventually get out of the Section 6 computers.
Yeah.
And that's where it starts getting a little bit like, what is life? And he gives this like speech where he's like, oh, well, I have memories, and memories are the definition of humanity, and like, what is a memory but this? And you can't really define a memory, but a memory can define a person, or something like that. And so he's like,
he's talking about DNA and how it's all just programming, if you really want to get down to it,
right,
and all that stuff.
And so he's like, ipso facto, I'm a Homo sapien.
I'm more human than you are.
Right. And I'm like, okay, a little thought provoking. I get it. And whether you look at like Skynet from Terminator, or I was iRobot with Will Smith, what actually does it mean to be alive? I'm like, okay, this is starting to get into it a little bit. I like it. I dig it. Cool. This is starting to get thought provoking. And then it just is like, there's an explosion and he escapes. And I'm like, wait, what? And so the rest of the movie is Major tries to go find him because she wants to do a deep dive into him and figure out what like he's about. Yeah. And she ends up finding him at this like derelict place, and there's a spider tank, and she fights the spider tank. And
well, that's from Section 6, right?
Yeah, it's from
Someone
Section 6.
Section 6 had stole her.
Right, stole the robotic body, which is a female body, but it's supposed to be a male, right?
Well, no, it's an indiscriminate AI. They just call it him.
Oh, okay.
Just because they don't know what it is.
Got it. Okay, I thought he identified as a male. I guess I just assumed his gender. My bad.
Gosh.
So
a chauvinist,
right? So she goes like solo and like goes to fight the tank, and There's no way. Like, her bullets aren't doing anything.
That was a terrible idea.
It was a terrible
What is she
idea.
doing?
And ultimately, this was a big flaw I found with the movie. Is like they keep talking about how Major's supposed to be like the perfect being and like a technological marvel, and she ended up not actually being able to beat the tank. Like, she beat herself trying to beat the tank. So
she destroyed her own body.
So what happened, Double? Tell us what happened.
Well, do you want the whole fight, or do you want her just beating herself?
Beating herself, or you could do the whole fight if you want. Whatever you want.
She fruitlessly shoots at the scorpion tank until it runs out. Well, it has to reload, essentially. She goes into her thermal optical camouflage, jumps on top of the scorpion tank, and tries to take out like the brain membrane part of it, right? But like all her force is doing this, and she rips herself apart.
She rips her own arms off.
Just gone.
And it was visually interesting. Like, you see her, like, her back rippling, and like from an animation standpoint, it was really detailed and graphic, and it looked amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool.
But she ripped her own arms off, falls off, and the tank picks her up by her head. And it's gonna like crush her head, and then
crush her face.
Batu comes and just like blows it away with like a really powerful handgun.
A standard issue big gun.
Yeah,
is what he said in English. That was great. That was so stupid, just trying to shoot at it.
Right.
Like, none of those bullets made any
No,
marks
it didn't
at
do
all.
anything. And so, ultimately, what I found lame about this is this movie, like, you could almost argue that it's a very ahead of its time, like, feminist kind of movie, having a strong female character driving it.
Yeah.
But she never does anything really all that impressive.
I mean, the water fight was cool.
The water fight was cool, and it was over quick, though. Like,
yeah.
And everything else was just, like, happenstance. Like, she didn't find the puppet master. The puppet master found them, and then she defeats herself, and then Batu ends up saving them.
All she really does is just have an existential crisis.
Exactly. And so then what ends up happening is she does end up doing like the deep dive, and it's really weird. Can you understood this a lot better, so I'm gonna let you explain what the like interaction between Puppet Master and her and what the deal was.
Well, I mean, it's just the same thing you were saying. The Puppet Master explains to her that the Puppet Master is an AI that has gained self-awareness, and he believes that's really all it is to be human. But he understands that to take that next step in evolution, he has to be able to recreate himself rather than just make copies, which he's able to do, because making copies does not breed diversity. It's just more of the same.
Right.
So he wants to merge with Major, and basically make
a new person,
network babies.
Yeah, make a new type of person. But then he also says that to be human or to be alive means you have to be able to die. So he wants to be in a shell that can be destroyed and ultimately not be around.
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, they never said they merged until afterwards.
Well, she said, what's weird is she keeps talking about, like, she's, like, really interested in it. Like, there's never a point where she's, like, a hard no. She's like,
well, she's like, well, what would I get out of it?
Yeah, what do I get out of it? And he's like, I'll give you all my powers. And it's like, but they don't really explain what he does other than
do.
hacking.
He couldn't even get out of Section 6. Like, what the
right. So, like, oh, you'll get all my powers and all my abilities. And she's kind of like, yeah, but, like, if you're in there, like, how much of me is remaining? He's like, I don't know. And she's like, well, it's really important to me that I'm an individual.
Guarantee.
And he's, like, super, like, a dick about it. And he's like, you're missing the point. You're missing the point of this. Why does it matter if you're an individual and everything? It's just like, well, this guy's trying to procreate and expand himself. So obviously he cares about himself or herself, themselves. And so, but she ultimately does it, and like snipers take out like both of them, but
both in the head at the same time.
Shoots them, but somehow Bateau got their brains somewhere else.
Well, on that scene, somehow the sniper shot them both in the head. It looked like, but her what was it? It was Major's head came off fully. So like, I guess she was shot in the neck.
Oh, so he was able to just keep the head.
Yeah, because there was a short, like, 3-second scene where her head, you can see her entire head in the water.
Got it. Okay. So he took her head, moved their mind, and put it in, like, a little girl body. Yeah. And, like, that was the end of the movie. She's like, I'm going to go.
Well, Batu was asking, like, oh, are you still Major? Is he inside you? Are you ever going to be just Major? Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, we're all one now.
Yeah, she says they're all one, but then she also says Major's still in there.
which is, I don't know.
It's so ambiguous and wishy-washy that it's kind of like they didn't really make a commitment to whether or not she's different or the same or not. And I know there's...
But I think that also has to do with the fact that she never considered herself one person. Like, she, in the water, she said every time she came up from the water, she felt as if she was someone new.
Huh. I guess. I don't know. This movie was interesting. Like, visually, it was really cool. Like, the city had a lot of detail, and there was some interesting stuff when they were doing the fight scenes. But overall...
I like this one a lot. I felt it was a lot grittier than the live action.
Yeah. And this one was just... It was short. I can give you that. It was like an hour and 23 minutes.
Yeah.
It wasn't very long. So, it was, it went through pretty quick. But I definitely had to, like, consult Wikipedia to kind of figure out what was going on. It did make more sense as you got to the end once the Puppet Master, but I just felt like it was all coincidence and happenstance, and maybe just because I'm a little biased against anime, or maybe just because it's 23 years old at this point.
Yeah,
I didn't really care about it that much.
Wow, really? 23 years old, 1995. Jeez, it makes me feel old,
right?
But yeah, no, I mean, for being a 1995 movie, I'm sure if you saw it in 1995, you're like, whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah, maybe with me seeing The Matrix first and seeing, there's been a lot of movies that kind of have that, like, other AI movies. Maybe it's just because I've seen so many things like this now. Maybe it's not original to me, but it was probably pretty groundbreaking in the 90s. But, like, I know so many people hold this movie like it is the greatest thing in the world. And
like,
I see people wearing...
Top 5 movies ever.
Right, and I see people wearing T-shirts of it all the time. And, like, people got really, like, worried about the live-action one. They're like, don't even do it. It's sacred kind of thing. Like, a lot of people did not want that one.
It got a lot of flack for that movie.
Right. And, like, it's just insane. It's crazy. Like, I don't see why it is held to such high esteem. I really don't. That's just me. I know some people...
Well, you're not an anime guy.
I'm not, but even still, like, a lot of times, like, if there's a movie that is genre defining that's so different, like, people who don't normally like that genre might like the Western, for example. Like, there are certain Western movies that people really like the 310 to Yuma or whatever it is.
Yeah, Yuma.
And or like True Grit. True Grit won an Academy Award. Both of them, I think, won Academy Awards. Like, I don't like Westerns, but I loved True Grit. And
interesting.
There's just certain movies that it's not your cup of tea, but you kind of are into it. And in this case, I was like, whatever.
It was alright.
Yeah.
I liked it. I don't know. I enjoyed it a lot.
I think
it was just got me thinking, and then I really liked the grittiness of it. But you're right. I mean, looking back on it, there wasn't a lot of, like, real action, which is what I look for in that kind of movie. But the action that was there was cool,
I guess. So,
I don't know. I liked it.
Before we move on to the 2017 live action version, I think we gotta take a break and talk about our sponsor.
Oh, wait, is it Audible?
It is Audible. What do you know about Audible, Mr. Double D?
I think Audible is like a cool service that you can get a free month of. But you can, like, listen to books, which is really cool.
Yep, it's pretty awesome. So if you go to audibletrial.com/MDXpods, you get a free 30-day trial and a free audiobook that you can keep regardless of if you keep the service or not. So check it out. It helps us out a lot. If you guys do that, it really does help us out. Every one person who does it basically pays for our month of paying our web hosting. So it's awesome. Help us out. It's absolutely free. And all you have to have is an Amazon account. When you link it to your Audible, download your free book and cancel it right away.
And it's free.
And
you know what I love, Mike?
Free shit.
Yep.
Cool.
Free stuff is the best
Free stuff is the more bester stuff.
The besterest.
The more besterest. All right. So can you summarize the live action one?
Yes, live action. This one is a little bit better at summarizing. Major Motoko Kusanagi is unique. A human brain implanted in a robot's body. This, the intelligence of a human combined with the physical qualities of a machine, has enabled her to be the ultimate crime fighter. Now she faces her ultimate enemy, Kuze, a criminal who has managed to hack into the brains of androids and control them.
Okay.
By grants.
Yeah,
that's a little more concise
than
the last.
Oh, go ahead.
No. That's what I said.
Oh, okay. So basically, Kuze it's the puppet master. They just changed the name, gave the character a name versus just calling it the puppet master.
They actually changed a good amount in the new movie.
They did, and they didn't at the same time. There was something that was interesting. So when I didn't read anything really about this beforehand. Like I just thought it was a remake of it.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like a shot for shot remake.
I looked into it a little bit, like just on like Wikipedia and IMDb, and they're like, it's an original story that borrows elements from the original movie and the sequel. Honestly, like the bare bones are the same. Like 90% of it's the same, but there's like extra things kind of sprinkled in, and it's definitely more. It clarifies certain things a lot more than the original did.
It took that existential crisis that she had to a new level as well.
It basically confirmed what she thought, like that kind of like, and so in the original one there was two like lines that were basically throwaway. Like sometimes I think it's possible that our memories aren't real, and then like you said, Boto is like, nah, that's shit, that's bullshit.
Yeah, you crazy.
And this one, like right off the bat, the beginning of the movie, we know a little bit more about like the corporation being a little shady. Like they added a corporation into this movie, Honka, and it starts off with you seeing this woman in the hospital, and they like take her out, they put her brain in a body, and then it cuts to a corporate guy named Cutter, and he's like, as soon as she's operational, put her in Section 9. She's a weapon and the future of my company. And then it just goes to pretty much a similar scene how the other one opened up, where instead of an American diplomat, it's a African diplomat. Yeah. And she goes in to save them, but like I think she fails. She gets there too late.
It's because of those geisha robots.
Yeah, so she fights these, like, those geisha robots were really cool though.
Pretty creepy.
Yeah, they looked fantastic. Like this movie looked really great. Like visually, it was amazing,
pretty stunning.
And like the weird, like the robot geishas were like walking up the walls and stuff like that, and like she goes in and like shoots one, and right as she's about to like destroy it, it's like collaborate with the Honka Robotics and be destroyed.
Yeah.
And like this one had the suitcase guns too. Like so, in addition to the geisha robots attacking, there were like random dudes coming to like help out, and they had like the weird suitcase guns from like the anime that I thought were really cool. It's like right off the bat, there was a lot of like nods, and her like the movie started with her jumping off the roof, just like the anime started. So right off the bat, there's a lot of like visually similar things.
What I thought was weird about that geisha scene is that she's yelling at a robot and asking who sent her.
And that's the thing that this movie was a little bit more, like it confused me a little bit, because in this one, it's very cut and dry. Like for the most part, everyone's human with a few enhancements, and she's the only full cyborg. Like she's got a robot body and the human mind. And like Bateau is just a human until at one point in the movie he loses his eyes, and they give him like robot eyes.
Well, I think he has other enhancements.
I think he might have like minor ones for the brain, but he's not like in the original one. He is a robotic body too.
Yeah.
And so in this one, it's like drastically different. Like she is one of a kind. Like she is unique. In the original,
she's the only full cyborg.
Yeah. In the original one, she's not unique. The humans are unique.
Yeah.
And so
full like Togosa.
Yeah. So right off the bat, this is drastically different in that. And the thing that's weird is that Geisha also like pleads for its life before Kuze like says like he's gonna destroy anybody who works with Honka.
Yeah. What was the saying that he said?
He said, "Collaborate with Honka Robotics and be destroyed."
Oh, okay. Collaborate.
And it's weird because like throughout the movie, there's different times where Major will go up to people and like, "Are you human or an android?" And so it seems like in this version, there are just straight up robots and androids living like humans.
Yeah.
And
so wouldn't that mean like complete AI awareness? Like, I don't know.
I don't know, but it also seems like they were talking about how the geishas were reprogrammed. So maybe it's like droids in Star Wars where like they can be programmed, but they do have basic personalities.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, I can see that.
I don't know. Like they didn't really explain that. But then they talk about like random enhancements. So like they go after that. It's like she's being like debriefed, and like one of the guys there's Togusa is the Asian guy from the Batman movies, the Christian Nolan ones. Yeah. Like I'm very good at calculations, and he like he's there, and they still talk about him being mostly human. And then like there's another guy who the only enhancement he got was like to his liver, so he can drink more alcohol. And it's like,
Right.
why would you want to do that? Why would you want to be able to drink more alcohol and not get drunk? Like, you're going to
Just so
spend
you
more
can
money.
Drink it and not die.
Yeah, but the whole point of drinking is to get drunk or to get that feeling. And if your body's going to be filtering it out quicker, what's the point?
I don't know. Just to beat people in bets.
I guess. But
I
2
don't know.
looked pretty good. That the actor who played him, he looked pretty much like the
I
cartoon.
agree. Yeah,
That's-
I agree. He looked really good until he put the eyes in. I thought when they put the augmented eyes in, he just looked weird.
I thought he looked just like the character. I thought he looked great.
I mean, yeah, I guess
He was great, Double D.
He was accurate to it, but I mean, it just I don't know.
It's a
To
little
me, it didn't
off-putting,
sit
but I
right.
think that's
Yeah.
the point. Because he
Yeah,
was
I
a
guess
little
so.
like,
got an
man, I
X-ray
can see
now.
everything, but he was kind of like hiding them initially.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's kind of weird to drive in these things. So this one moves pretty good. Both movies, I think, were paced really well. Like, there's no real lag in this movie. But what's weird is she's like, all of a sudden she goes to like the boss and she's like, I'm going to kill Kuze. That's what I was built for. And the boss is like, no, you're more than a weapon. And he explains that she has a soul. But it's like, she seems like she's putting this like self kind of like deprecating, like, I'm just a weapon. That's all I am kind of thing. But it's like, but then she's also like, I'm pretty sure I'm human and I want to be human. But she keeps like backing herself into that own corner.
I got confused. I mean, just to go back to the existential crisis where she's confused about what she is. When she was talking to Batu in the car and she was saying that her memory is cloudy sometimes.
Right.
But then Batu says like, oh, it's good to be like you pure. I'm like, what?
I don't know.
I don't get it.
I don't know.
Doesn't
I
make
didn't get
sense.
that. Well, and then the thing is, what was interesting about this movie, and I liked it, and it was like a little bit of a twist towards the end of the movie, is throughout she goes to, like, she got a small injury at that like geisha scene, so she goes to this like doctor, and like she repairs her pretty easy, and then they make her. She keeps talking about that there's these glitches, but what the glitches are is actually it's almost like Total Recall. She's kind of remembering her memory a little bit.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, can you go through and delete these glitches? So she has to say, I give my consent to delete these. So you're making it think like, oh, they're treating her like she's an actual person and not like a machine, and that she needs to be taken, unlike RoboCop, where they're just like, do whatever you want kind of thing. So I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. They're treating her like a human. But then throughout the movie, you've got Cutter like she's my property. So it's kind of messed up. That like, but they say that in the cartoon too, or the anime. They talk about at any time they want, they can leave Section 9, but they have to give up their bodies because their bodies are owned.
Megatech?
Yeah.
Megatech in the anime.
Right, so they'd have to give up their bodies. So they'd only be a ghost, but they'd have to basically find a way to buy another body before they leave.
Yeah.
So it was like, that's kind of messed up. So even in the first one, they're kind of slaves. Kind of. But in this one, so it's like, she ends up doing like a deep dive into the robot, and then she's almost gets hacked by Kuze. And like everyone's like super mad, and then like the CEO guy's like, why would you let her do that? Like, she's my property. And the boss guy was like, yeah, you don't work. I work for the government, not for you.
Not for you.
And like, don't threaten me and stuff. So the boss guy was pretty cool. But then like the next scene, it's like she goes to like a prostitute. Like Major goes to the prostitute. That's a prostitute, right?
Yeah, I think so. And then she's just like all feeling on her face.
Yeah, she's got like this weird silver mouth. Like, is it like a mouth condom?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. She just puts it on her face.
Yeah,
she's
this...
like, take it off so I can touch it.
Yeah, and it's really weird. And she's like, are you a human? And she's like, yep. And then just keeps like touching her lips.
Yeah. The scene before that, she was all touching her own face and stuff.
Right. And then like
then she wanted to go touch a human's face.
Goes to like the guy, like the woman who helped her hack the geisha gets attacked by a hooded dude, which is Kuze.
Yeah.
And then like they go and they just like find a list. Like Kuze just left a list of like who he's trying to kill. And it's all linked to Secure Project 2551.
Well, no, it wasn't a list. He didn't leave the list. It was the people that were working on Major.
They figured out what the file was. Like,
exactly.
He left the file open that he was looking
at.
It
was funny because like he sneaks up on this lady looking at this file. There's no way he didn't see her browsing through the file, and she pulls it out and just like hides it in her hand.
Right. And then he like rips the visor off her face, like, which is like, he just like rips her face apart.
Yeah. Just takes her eyes out.
Yeah. I'm like, okay. And then it goes to like, somehow they figure out the garbage. So they're like analyzing the hacks again, and then basically the garbage truck scene from the original movie happens.
But it was way condensed.
I don't really. I mean, I don't think so. I feel like it was pretty accurate. Like he had the conversation. They changed a little bit. Like his daughter's playing like the clarinet or something like that, and.
Well, I mean, they just had like a 3-second conversation about his daughter, and then
they got hacked
like
completely.
stopped talking. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so they get hacked, and then they like.
And they had guns. Why did they have guns?
Because they were hacked, bro, and they didn't realize it. It was like they only activated them when I don't know, but they go and like hack. So like Kuze hacks these garbage truck guys, and they go and like T-bone one of the doctor's like vans, and then there's like the big shootout, and then it happens exactly like in the cartoon or the anime, like. The guy's chasing and she's running around on the roof, and it goes to that like water scene.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same, like almost shot for shot, like the same flips, the grabbing the wrist, twisting it around. It was beautifully shot. Like it looked amazing. And during this time, there's also like in the anime at the same time there, you see this shot where like it zooms out from the street and it like angles up, and then you see like the plane fly over the alley. That was in it too. Like there was a lot of shots that were like identical, and it looked really cool. And you know, watching it recently, I was like, I definitely noticed that right away. I'm like, oh, wow, that's exactly the same.
Shot for shot.
Right. And so then they go and they, you know, talk to him, and it's exactly the same thing. They realize it's not that it's a fake memory, but then he ends up like snapping his own neck somehow.
Yeah, with the security casing that they have on. That was weird.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, like, if my memory had been ruined, I don't know that I couldn't.
Right. Like what do I really know about myself? Like, I get it, but I feel like Kuze did it.
Oh yeah,
well, they did because they said that Kuze's still in there, and so like she tries.
Kuze
to talk
actually
to him.
Talked to them,
right? And then he says that he's been born more than once and has more than one name.
Yeah,
and then like
my given name here is Kuze.
Yeah, and then so like he allows them to find him, and he goes to like this weird place, and basically what he did is he kidnapped a bunch of people and used their brains as like a network.
Yeah,
and he like tricks her. She gets ambushed and gets like taken out. And she tells him like he's like this weird hybrid. He kind of reminds me of Raiden from Metal Gear Solid.
Oh yeah, I can see
yeah,
that.
He looks exactly like Raiden from Metal Gear Solid, and he like tells her exactly what happens. Like it takes her basically the same thing as the anime. Like they created him, or they abducted him. Like he doesn't really remember his human self, but he knows he used to be human.
Yeah,
and he was so. In this one, it's not an AI. Like the corporation just started kidnapping people.
He was a person. Yeah, exactly.
And so like she gets like a flash. Like he has a tattoo, and she remembers the tattoo. And he's like, "Don't take your drugs. Like all the medicine that they've been having you take
your memories
are erasing her memories." So she goes back and like confronts the bad guys, and the doctor helps her get out.
Yeah.
And then it just
what I liked about that scene is that she was like, "Oh, I don't consent to blah blah blah," and she was like, "Oh, we never needed
it." Yeah. I like that, but then it makes you think, and then so they let her go, or she lets her go, and she like whoops on all kinds of ass and gets out of the facility. Like, why did that CEO guy Cutter allow the scientist who was saying like trying to save her do the work? Like, why would you not just have some other person go in there and destroy her?
I think it was just a power play. Like, well, I mean, you work for me, you're gonna go do this, and you're gonna do it right.
And then it definitely didn't work out. And then the movie goes pretty quick from here. Like, Like what I liked about this one is that it gave the team a little bit more to do. So she's like using like mind comm, communicates with the boss and was like, "Hey, this is what's happening." And so he's like, "Oh, we've been burned. Like we need to get out of here." And like they end up sending assassins to kill all of her team. And like because she
the
warned
boss
them.
Was cool, like with that revolver.
Yeah, so
that was an awesome little scene.
Yeah, so he takes out everyone. Like all these different people take things out, and then she goes to this like place, and she goes and visits her mom. Like she finds out who she is, and goes and sees her mom.
That was a weird scene too.
Yeah, and then she goes to like this place that she lives, so that she finds out that she lived in like a no man's land, as basically like a communist, and found out, and so like there's a tank waiting there for her. So she ends up like I need to talk to Kuze again, and the boss is like, if we put you on a network and Kuze finds you, the bad guys will find you. And then she like fights a tank. Yeah, she fights the same tank, and the same thing happens, but she only loses one arm. And then but she actually defeated the tank this time.
I mean, it looked cool on the live action.
Oh, it looked really cool. Like you still saw the ripple and everything. But ultimately, this time she actually beat the tank. Like, she ripped it apart.
Oh, yeah, she ripped it apart, took the brain out.
Yeah, right. So that was pretty cool. And that was basically it. And then, like, but Kuze got killed. Like, Kuze was there and got killed. And she was like, oh, man. But, like, now she lives with her mom, but is also still a cop.
Yep.
So, yeah. What overall
She's
your
still
impressions
Section
of the
9.
movie, though? What did you think?
I mean, it was a good action movie, I guess. I don't know. I mean, if I'm comparing it to the anime, I prefer the anime. I think I just watching the anime set a different expectation for me as more of a gritty movie, whereas this one was more of like a heartfelt, I'm trying to figure out what I am movie.
I kind of like this one better because it was like, it still had I still felt like there was more of an existential, like the existential crisis was still there. Like, who am I? Am I real? Am I members? And it turned out they weren't. And like, what does it mean to be like control? Like, it was almost like a consent for medical stuff. Like, you know, who, like what, and like the mending of like property. And, you know, like I can see us getting to a point like this someday. And she mentions that. She goes, the scientist to her at one point goes, you're what everybody else will be someday.
Yeah.
And everything. So it's like, well, that's kind of scary if someday everyone's going to be basically a robot with a human brain, corporation, and seeing that people can already be hacked. Like, it's interesting. Like, is that a way our society wants to go? Is that something we're comfortable with? So it still had those thought-provoking moments, but I think it was more, I guess this movie held your hand a little bit more. Like, it explained things.
Yeah, it definitely did.
And I guess, like, but it was still, I don't know. I did prefer this one because I felt like you weren't questioning everything. Like, you still had to have these thought-provoking like, you had to think about it, but it wasn't just, like, weird, and I felt like this one flowed better.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely flowed better. I mean, it was more of a chronological story, whereas, like you said, with the anime, it kind of just jumped from scene to scene.
Yeah, it was, like, very hard cuts.
I do want to talk about Kuze a little bit.
Yeah.
I really liked that they did like that computerized voice.
Yeah, he had a computerized voice, and it kind of would like cut in and out. I thought visually he was awesome. Really cool, and so he was like a prototype version of Major. Body.
It was really cool.
Yeah, I really liked him. I thought it was an interesting take on him, and you know, he was just trying to survive and get revenge and find her, and it turns out like they were like boyfriend girlfriend or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Motoko and I don't remember what his name is.
I got it here somewhere. Give me a second. I'll find it. Kuze was Hideo. And she was Motoko.
Yeah. I guess that added another element to it, right? But
and he died.
First, when I first saw him, I was like, oh, I thought this was supposed to be a girl.
Right. The other thing that I found I had a problem with is they can only track her if she's on a network. Like, you would think if they put presumably...
She's always on a network?
You would presumably think they put billions of dollars into her, right? Maybe not billions, but millions, right? Why would you not have a GPS tracker in her?
GPS not a thing.
Right? And also, like, they know who she was beforehand. Like, why would they not just keep tabs on... like the family, like just in case she figured out who she was, go to the mom and be like, just keep an eye on her, just in case. Like, that was a little weird. And then also like the mind comms clearly are not something that people can't hack, because Cutter was paying attention. He knew that the Section 9 guy was going to betray him and go and help out. Yeah. So it was like, there's all these things that was like the boss, like Cutter clearly had like, I'm going to monitor Section 9, but like, why would you not have these like precautions in place?
Maybe it's a small department. I don't know.
A small department. Ooh, I oughta. I don't know. There's weird.
There's a lot of questions.
Yeah, there's like, it's not a perfect movie.
What did you think about the casting?
Okay, so there was a lot of controversy around this movie when it came out. You know, they were concerned with it being whitewashed and everything like that. And I personally... I think whitewashing in Hollywood is definitely a problem. Like, I agree with you there. Emma Stone played an Asian woman in a movie a couple years ago, and like, she's clearly not Asian. And recently with the Hellboy reboot, they actually cast Ed Skeen, who played Ajax in Deadpool, as like an Asian man, and then he found out and he dropped out of it. Then he's like, oh no, like there's no reason for me to be playing a guy who's definitely Asian, and being Asian had something to do with his culture. And, like, I'm not opposed to mixing, like, when in the Fantastic Four, having Michael B. Jordan, like, being white is not a crucial part to the Human Torch's backstory.
Right.
So there are times where I think it is okay to change it, even like in
especially if you're able to explain it, where he was a stepbrother.
yeah, they were
Stepbrother or
stepbrother and
something?
stepsister, right? And it
Yeah.
doesn't change the dynamic, but it gives you diversity in a movie. I'm fine with that. And even in Daredevil, having the Kingpin being Michael Clark Duncan kind of makes sense because the Kingpin grew up in the Bronx, and like that would make sense. Like there are certain times where you can make that change and it makes sense, and it doesn't really affect the character.
Right.
In this case, I was a little torn. Like when the movie first came out, I'm like, oh, okay, I can see. Like there are Asian actresses they can get, like that girl from Pacific Rim. I know a lot of people were like, she could do it,
Oh yeah, she's a good casting for it.
right? But watching the original, there were Americans and white characters in the movie,
Yes.
and even Bateau, he's pretty ethnically ambiguous. Like he could be Asian, he could be white,
Yeah, he's just a big dude.
and anime in general. Like if you look at a lot of anime, a lot of the characters are ethnically ambiguous because they draw them with over-exaggerated features to be able to have them be super expressive and emote.
A lot of them are blonde too.
Exactly. So, and in this particular one, especially in the live action, when they talk about building her to be the perfect human,
Right.
and that's where I'm kind of like, even though her name is Motoko, I don't remember the last name, so she was definitely an Asian originally.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it because they're saying like the perfect human being. And when you look at Scarlett Johansson, she's fucking flawless. It's like she's a beautiful woman. And then when you look at the culture, like they did interviews with a lot of people in Japan and they were completely on board with it. Like, they thought she was perfectly cast.
Yeah.
So if people, and then the guy who created it was also on board with her casting. So if people who created the property and people in Japan where this property is from are on board with it, I don't see a problem in this particular case.
Just a side note here. Do you say GIF or GIF?
I say GIF, but I know it's GIF.
Because the creator
This
said it
is
was
GIF.
GIF, right?
Yeah,
Okay. But it's graphics interchange
Right.
format, which would be GIF.
right.
I say GIF.
I say GIF.
I don't know. Whatever.
But in this particular case, because it's a person being put into a different body, and ultimately this is a movie that needs to be marketable, like I kind of get it, and I'm all right with it. But if it was like, if they had Scarlett Johansson playing the original character and her name was, Motoko, and I wouldn't be on board with that. I'd be like, well, no, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, they also had a different character for her original Motoko person.
Exactly, and that's where I'm fine with it. And if people in Japan were like, no, this totally makes sense, and like people,
then everyone should be fine.
it should be fine. In this particular case, I'm on board with them casting her.
Yeah. For my opinion, when it originally was casted as Scarlett Johansson, I was a little upset. I was like, oh, it should be an Asian woman, blah, blah, blah. But then I was like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter if they're cool with it. And watching the movie, it really does explain it well, whereas Motoko was the original ghost, I guess, and then Scarlett is the made body.
Yeah, she's the shell.
Yeah.
And that also makes for it being weird, and that interaction with her mom was like, you remind me of her, but I know you're not her.
You look at me like she did.
It was interesting. So I think that adds a dynamic to it. Like they could have explored it more and like maybe gone into the controversy a little bit, like, hey, this is weird and that's why we did it, because it adds another struggle to the character.
Yeah.
They could have done something like that. Like they could have done a little bit more with it. But in this particular case, I don't have a problem with it.
No, I think it played out nicely.
Like if they were to take like Suicide Squad is a terrible movie, but I don't remember the character name. But the girl with the katana, I think her name is Katana. Like if they were to get like a white girl to play that one, that would be weird because that's crucial to her character.
Shame.
The Asian heritage is crucial to the character. You can't take that away. So if it's crucial to the character, you got to do it. Like, and I know a lot of people, like whenever you see these casting things,
like a white Black Panther,
right? That's something that doesn't make sense. Like that that drastically changes the character fundamentally. It doesn't. You can't do that. Like you can't make a white Black Panther because he's the king of an African country.
Exactly.
But
there's white people in Africa.
In South Africa, but it's a little bit different. And then if you go to like in Spider-Man: Homecoming last year, a lot of people thought that Zendaya was going to be Mary Jane, and a lot of people were upset. And I think James Gunn, the director of and writer of Guardians of the Galaxy, was basically like, it doesn't matter. It's not crucial to her
It
character.
doesn't matter.
And it doesn't. Like,
Doesn't
Zendaya is a
make a
very
difference.
beautiful young girl. She's very pretty. And that's really the extent of Mary Jane's character appearance-wise, is she's very attractive.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been drawn differently as well. I mean, I think it's a lot of people are like, just call themselves purists and like, oh, it should be exactly as the comic is.
And that's...
But it doesn't matter.
But the thing is, comics in particular were very, like, if it's a character that started in the 50s or 60s, they were going to be white unless they was a blaxploitation character kind of thing like that. So it makes sense to evolve and change the characters a little bit. Like, I'm on board with. So I feel like it's a case-by-case basis. Like, I don't think it's wrong to change the race of a character if it's not crucial to the story. Now, that being said, I don't think we should be changing all characters from Asian to white or from white to whatever. Like, it needs to make sense. Like, if you're just trying to make a movie more diverse, I'm on board with it. Like, the Fantastic Four movie was not bad because they changed the race of the Human Torch.
Michael B. Jordan.
It was just So that's my piece about that.
Movie. I completely agree with you, Michael.
Thank you.
I'm glad you displayed that nicely. Your opinion there, it was portrayed very, very well.
But yeah, don't change Black Panther to a white guy. That'd be bad.
That'd be very bad.
So,
all right, one more question for you, Mike,
yes.
before we wrap it up here. If you had an augment, what would it be?
I feel like I would just want an augmentation where my brain is hooked up to the internet, where, like, if I just needed to look up a fact really fast, like, I could just find anything like that.
But you have a phone.
But I mean, like, if I didn't need, like, I wouldn't need to have the phone and look it up. Like, I just had it. Like, I just had the knowledge in my brain.
So you would like to be augmented to actually be a know-it-all?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
I think so.
I think I would just fix my metabolism.
You just fix your tiny dick.
No, I already fixed that.
Okay.
No, but yeah, no, I mean, like, I'm obviously not as fit as I used to be, so I would definitely want to work on my metabolism.
There's just more of you to love.
There's a lot more of me to love compared to high school. Oh,
right.
Man.
The only other thing I kind of
hot.
want to say, and this is just more like behind the scenes for my life. So, Scarlett Johansson is one of my favorite actresses of all time. I think she's incredibly beautiful. And there's a thing that I do when I'm watching a movie with my wife, Katrina, host of my co-host on Ruin My Childhood. There's certain actresses, if I find them very attractive and then they're put into a position where they look very good in the moment.
You rub one out.
No, I do not rub one out in the moment. What I say is I'll say that they're gross. So, for example, that first scene of the movie where Scarlett Johansson's in that skin-tight suit and she, like, takes that robe off, I just go, gross. And then Katrina always laughs. We watch Modern Family, and anytime Sofia Vergara comes on and you see, like, any kind of, like, jiggle or she's doing anything nice, I'll be like, gross. My wife just laughs. So I said gross a lot in this movie because Scarlett Johansson looked terrible throughout this movie. And by terrible, I mean she was amazing.
Fantastic.
But
just for a couple action scenes, I didn't like her expressions. I thought they were a little forced
flat
and awkward.
Yeah, I agree. The director who did this movie is the guy who did the Snow White movie with Kirsten Stewart.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And that's another, like, maybe he's just used to actresses who don't make good facial expressions, because that seems like the only big movie he did, and he also banged Kirsten Stewart. So maybe he likes emotionless women.
Maybe he has no heart.
Maybe
he's Kuze.
So, push come to shove, do you think this is a movie that needed to happen?
No.
I think it was, I mean, realistically, no movie ever needs to happen, but I do think this is a great way for someone to get into the franchise. Like, I think it was interesting enough that I'm kind of interested in checking out maybe one of the sequels. I probably won't read the manga or anything like that, but I'm kind of interested. There's like 2 or 3 other movies. I might watch one more just to see what I think, because I know
those are weird too. Just as a preliminary warning.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. But I feel like this is, if somebody's interested but, like, doesn't really know where to start, like, I think this is a good way to kind of, like, toe the water and, you know, kind of dip your toe in and see what it's like.
Get into anime a little bit.
Yeah. Like, I think it was worth making because, like, some people will not get into anime. Like, some people will never watch it, but this is a way, like, you can see that and maybe get, like, a different type of culture. Or maybe you get into it. I don't know. So I think from that front, it's worth it. And visually it was amazing. Like it looked amazing,
Yeah.
and it was definitely worth
both
watching.
of them would be. Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it was a good movie. Like I'd say it was like I give it like a B, like a solid B.
Yeah, I'd say B minus.
Yeah, you know what? B minus I think is fair. Maybe even a C plus. I'm dropping down to a C plus.
I don't know if I'd go that far. I'd say it's a decent.
It's an average
B-minus.
movie.
Yeah,
like it's worth watching. It's pretty short too. It's less than 2 hours long, so it's not like something crazy. I was kind of sad that the soundtrack was different. Like during the trailer, it had a like a remix of the Depeche Mode song.
Yep.
And I ended up like finding it and downloading. I really liked the what was it, the silence one. Enjoy the Silence. I really liked it, and then it made me end up going and like I don't have any Depeche Mode, and I ended up buying like 15 Depeche Mode songs after this trailer came out.
So you paid more for music than the actual movie.
Correct. This movie made me buy a bunch of music that had nothing to do with the movie.
All right.
All right. Well, that's it. I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else?
No. I think we're a little torn here between yes and no, but overall, good movie to watch.
Cool. So, thank you guys for listening. Check us out at MDXpods.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram for like daily updates. I post on there almost every single day. Check us out at patreon.com/MDXpods if you want to support the show. And check out our other show, Ruin My Childhood. I do that with Katrina. It's pretty great. And if you want to support us another way and you want something for free, like Double D says, it's the best
free stuff.
Go to audibletrial.com/MDXpods for a free month of Audible. Thank you guys for listening.
Sweet. Later, dudes.
Bye.